everybody. Hey, hey. Thanks for being here today. Another exciting moment for so many exciting reasons. What today has been? Today has been a really, just a cool day. So, we're going to talk about goddesses because that's what we do. And also, the calendar. So we're going to start with the calendar first because it is Sunday the 21st. It's the last day on some calendars, especially the Gregorian calendar of Cancer. And then tomorrow will be the first day of Leo. But today, interesting day energetically, it is a Sunday on the Gregorian calendar. So there's the sun. Also, it is Pluto energy if we're starting the new moon month on the first day of the new moon, which was the 4th. Can you see it? Can you see the magic? Can you see the stuff? I mean, what the heck, fire. Okay. And then it is also Saturn energy with the first day of the calendar or the month starting the day after the end of the new moon, which would have been Sunday the 7th. So it's been exactly 2 weeks from Sunday the 7th, and we're at the last day of the full moon. And Pluto Saturn energy. No wonder. I feel like there is Saturn energy doing her thing. I think we're still in Saturn retrograde, so she is doing her thing. Retrospect, we're experiencing that. There's so many things happening in the sky. Okay, pay attention to the sky when you can, if there's no smoke and no clouds, and even pay attention to those. There's stuff going on. I'm just saying. And then with Pluto energy, so it's kind of like diving deep one last time before we enter into the sun energy of Leo. And look at that, like it's a Sunday the day before on the Gregorian calendar. And then if we don't go by the Gregorian calendar, we go 13 days back, which to me is like, is it really July 4th? Is it? And I didn't do the gematria on July 4th, but I can. I could real quickly. Well, you just go back 13 days, right? So the 4th, this is a little easier. I think, would it be the 20th? Because there were 30 days in June. Yep. Yeah. Which is a Thursday. But it was a full moon, and it was Uranus and Jupiter. So, it's just, And the last full moon in June also, Saturn was one of the days. Saturn again. A lot of Saturn energies going on is what I'm feeling. So wanted to catch you up on the calendar real quick. I've done a little bit more research, but that'll be a different video where I go into like time and the meridians. And I already have a video where I talk about like meridian is Mary, Diana, goddess names. The day used to start at noon. Goddess named. Okay, so moving on to goddesses. So the other day, I wanted to just learn some stuff. So I decided to flip open the book of Encyclopedia of Spirits and see where it took me. So the first goddess I opened up to, so I'm kind of going down a path here because ultimately what it brought me back to was, okay, let's find out who are the creation goddesses and who are the creation goddesses specifically in the Americas. Because when you put in ancient goddesses and when you Google it, or even the books, most of the books that are written, most of the deities are Mesopotamian, Greek, Norse, Celtic, which is basically the same. I'm learning. I thought they were a little bit different. They are a little different, but ultimately they have similar stories with like Odin and the Valkyries and such like that. And then we have African orishas and deities, and those are pretty ancient. Like, those are pretty ancient. And I did find a pretty ancient indigenous American goddess or creator god. And that was kind of my point because, okay, so I started the first goddess I opened up to, or opened the page up to, was Eileithyia. Eileithyia. And Eileithyia, I do think is... Okay, let me double check. So I brought my book out. I wrote notes, but I also brought my book out here to confirm some things. Alright, so bear with me, and I appreciate it. Okay. I mostly kind of got distracted even reading about her because her name is like Cynthia, and there's a whole story around Cynthia and Cinderella. Well, around Cinderella, and so I digress. But I did get a little distracted, and I read about 4 other goddesses. So the one that I read the last is the most in my mind. Anyhow, okay, let's find her real quick. Okay, she's Greek, and her names are also Eileithyia, Eileithyia, like I-L, and Genitolius. Okay? She's Greek. I mean, I apologize. She is Crete. She's Crete. And if you remember from my book, my video where I mentioned Herodotus, his mother was Crete. And so I did a whole research on that, and Crete people are brown. Okay? That's ultimately what I found out, is they're brown, and that's mostly it. Because when I was looking, that's as far as I got. I know a bit more about Crete, but anyhow. Okay. Eileithyia she's an ancient goddess of childbirth, midwifery, and birthing pains. And so I also started nitpicking some of this stuff because of how I've viewed patriarchy and how we've been taught about patriarchy and the whole deal. So, anyhow, she is believed to be a Minoan goddess, assimilated to the Greek pantheon as Hera's daughter. You know, okay, that might be in the language of the goddess books. Okay. She works very closely with Hera and Hera's weapon in her struggle to prevent Zeus's otherwise from giving birth and threatening her sovereignty. See, I would just feel like here's a story where, birthing pains, right? That's the punishment from the all, seeing eye. So it's like, and also like the threat of Zeus, getting other, heirs. Like, can't there be some magic to keep Zeus from doing that? I mean, you see what I mean? Like, we've been so, even the myths are indoctrinated in this patriarchal lens. Okay. So I bring her up. She is venerated by pregnant women and those in labor. Midwives are her favorite people. A woman bearing a torch or with hands upraised as if beckoning. Is that similar to like the Statue of Liberty? It's annoying me in the background. Sometimes there is one Eileithyia, but sometimes she is portrayed as a pair of spirits. Would that be like the first Geminis? Attribute is a torch. Her spirit allies are Hera and or Artemis. She may be venerated alongside them. And we just did a video on Artemisia, who is an actual person. Her sacred site. This is why The cave of Eileithyia is near Knossos, Crete, and is allegedly her birthplace, and was in an important pilgrimage site. She is associated with caves in general. She's a Sibyl. She's a Sibyl. She's a Sibyl. This is one of the missing Sibyls, as far as I'm concerned. Eileithyia was widely venerated goddess with shrines throughout Greece. Offerings. Things in the shape of a breast. Ex votos. Milagros. I gotta look that up. Incense and water. Okay. Then, that's one goddess. Now, let's say incense and water? Yeah, incense and water. So, I mentioned these again because, let me see. Cave. Mark it down. Cave. One goddess. First goddess I pulled up. Cave. All right. Water. And then the shapes of breasts. And I have a theory about mounds, which I'll do in a whole nother video, but mounds, what do they look like? Okay. And a link to Artemis. And let's see. I think that's it for the moment. Oh, midwives. I think it's midwives. Okay. So the next deity is Morgan Le Fay. Morgan Le Fay. Okay. Now, Morgan Le Fay is a Norse or a Celtic or Celtic. How are we supposed to say that? It should be Celtic, right? Mythology, if I'm remembering correctly, but I think I just said that about Eileithyia. So I'm just going to pause for a second and find her. Okay, so here's what's fun and interesting. So we have Morgana, which is, so this one, okay, well, there's Morgana, and then you'll have added things. And so I wonder, does it tell me where she comes from? Yeah. In the beginning. So she is Welsh. All right, we'll get into that in a second because it goes to her name as well. But I find it interesting because similar to some of the Orishas that have more than one name, Morgana also has more than one name. So Morgan Le Fay is one of her names. Morgarine Le Fay, and Fata Morgana. All right. And then there's Morgana, and then there's Morgana or Morrigan. There's Morrigan, and they're all kind of related. Anyhow, so Morgan Le Fay literally means Morgan the Fairy. Morgan probably derives from the Welsh word from sea, mor, Celtic, so mor is the word for sea. Celtic mermaids are also known as Morgans, or in Ireland, Merrow, for the Gaelic Muir. Although now most famous as King Arthur's half-sister, Morgan Le Fay is older than the Arthurian saga, meaning she comes way before that story. One theory suggests that Morgan was originally a Celtic death goddess, similar to an angel of death or a psychopomp. Morgan is the ruler of the Celtic paradise, Avalon, the Isle of Apples. She is sometimes envisioned as a mermaid. She may be an aspect of Celtic war goddess, the Morrigan. I was just saying. A theory suggests that the Arthurian tales of Morgan and Avalon recall a shrine on a small, isolated British isle, a pagan outpost that survived invasions and Christianity at least for a while. Morgan first appears in the Arthurian sagas of Geoffrey the Mammoth's 12th century life of Merlin as a healer. She leads 9 holy women of Avalon who tend Arthur's wounds. In this version, she is not his sister. They end up falling in love. And there is another story. By the 13th century, there is another story. By the 12th century, she's portrayed as a sister, but still good or benevolent. By the 13th century, it's a different story, and Morgan was transformed. Cistercian monks composed the prose Lancelot, also known as something cycle, Vulgate cycle, between 1230 and 1250, which describes the adventures of Lancelot of the Lake of the Quest of the Holy Grail. Morgan also has powerful roots in Italy, where she is called Fata Morgana. Fata is Italian for fairy. Fata Morgana is also the name of a fatal mirage, an optical illusion that lured sailors to their not coming back in the Straits of Messina. The goddess Morgana was held responsible, of course, because everything is woman's fault. Just kidding. Mostly because she's the goddess of the waters, right? Okay, so I just don't want to read everything and kind of just give you guys. So they end up kind of making her bad, right? And by this time, they believed it was blasphemous to attribute powers of healing and prophecy to women who were unaffiliated with religious orders. Like, we've talked about this before. I know in some of the stories that are coming through other ancient books and downloads, so to speak, they let us know that there was a time when women ruled and had power, especially like magical influence, for a long time, and then it shifted and it became much more patriarchal, so to speak. New elements were added to the story, things with her and her brother, possession, and she became the Wicked Witch instead of, and then Arthur's antagonist instead of being, she probably was. It's probably like the other stories that we heard where they're like, oh no, that they weren't together. This guy's amazing and she's terrible. Okay. So she is a priestess and a heroine in some books in 1982, The Mists of Avalon. She's a primary antagonist in the series of Christian fantasy novels Dragons in Our Mists, right? And Morgan is envisioned as an avatar of Lilith, which we will be getting to. Okay. And then she's among the many powerful witch characters from the famous DC Comics. And she is a spirit of healing, love, and romance. She is the mistress of illusions, hallucinations, visions, and dreams. She may be invoked for magical instruction and spiritual guidance. Her functions as a psychopomp may also be requested. Manifestation. She's a brilliant shapeshifter who can assume virtually any form. Her bird is a crow. Have I mentioned how many times? We will see this repeated. Sacred sites. She's not a simple woodland fairy, but substantial real estate holding. She rules an underwater kingdom near Brittany. She rules a fairy paradise near or on Mount Etna. She has a castle staffed with beautiful fairies near Edinburgh, and she lives on the magical Isle of Avalon. Okay, so we have fairy lore. We have fairy lore crossing between names, right, and languages. This is just to show you like how long we've been venerated and how shortly we have not been venerated. Like, I also feel like this is part of the empowerment, is all these stories start coming up and you're like, wait a second. We really did do everything. We started everything. We're the beginning of everything. We taught ourselves things. We taught other people things. We learned from other people. We remembered it. We handed it down. The mothers. All right. And then what was the other thing? So The cross between like how Orishas will have several different names. Well, you'll see this across different pantheons, where, for example, some of the saints' names. Is that true though? I feel like some of the saints' names, no, they're not interchangeable. But you do see them change in different religions, but that's not, well, that's kind of what I'm talking about. So you'll see adaptations in other cultures of similar deities, right? Okay, the next deity, we're getting to the fun stuff, is Persephone. And why I decided Persephone is because I wanted to just double check on my story. Now, these are mostly, I did a little bit on Google and the internet, but those are most stories that you hear quite often. So I like this book because there are stories in here that aren't as, say, common, like that with Morgan Le Fay, right? Okay, because for some reason I linked her to Odin. It must not have been Persephone. I wonder who's Persephone in that lore. Anyhow, she's also known as Kore, 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 which is where I theorize, and I might have read, and I could be making it up, but I don't think so. But I think Korea, Korea, I thought was named for the goddess Kore. Anyhow, so I could be way off on that. I could just be making that up because it would fit it, Korea. It fits. I feel like I read that somewhere. Maybe in here. I will look it up. Anyhow, Persephone is Greek. Or Greece. That's her origin. All right, and we know her story about her mother is Demeter. Okay? And she was Persephone's mother. And the story is that Hades stole her down into the underworld, and then Demeter went to go find her. And then what ended up happening is, like, they made a deal, and so Persephone is allowed to come up part of the year, and the other part of the year is not. Anyhow, Demeter is the goddess of agriculture, and this is her daughter. And Persephone is the goddess of... I don't really say. Okay. But, they say when she strikes, there is no food. And so to me, this relates similar to Oshun. Because if Oshun decides there's no water, there's no food. So, it's interesting. Anyhow. Okay. Eventually a deal was negotiated, and Persephone would have returned to the upper world completely, except that she had eaten 6 pomegranate seeds. So that made her have to stay from Hades' garden. So since she had eaten the fruit of the unalive, she has to spend half her year as Hades' queen. So once again, Hades doesn't have to come out. No, she has to spend time. I'm just saying. It's like, oh my gosh, the stories are endless. It's endless. However, the myth makes Persephone seem like a pawn, fought over. Yeah. However, scholars suspect Persephone, whose name may be interpreted as destroying face, is an ancient goddess of not life. Persephone may be the original ruler of Hades. In order to obtain his throne and establish rulership, Hades may have to kidnap her in the same manner that Poseidon, what, Amphitrite, who I need to look up because I haven't heard of her. I always thought it was like Aphrodite, but this is Amphitrite. Amphitrite. That is tricky to say. And Zeus tricked Hera into marriage. So Persephone may actually be more ancient than Demeter or Hades, with some scholars placing her origin as early as the Neolithic era. Okay. She is accompanied, when she does come to Earth, she is accompanied by a procession of dancing chariots, Ore and Minore. 3 groups of 3 spirits. 9 beautiful dancers. So, what do we hear again? 9 for Persephone, 9 for Eileithyia. Okay? We're not done with 9. I'm just saying. She keeps popping up. The divine 9. Alright, favored peoples for Persephone is widows. She can manifest as a young, beautiful woman. Her image can ward off ghosts, reputedly, they say. Her attributes are pomegranate, horse harness, because according to Eleusinian mysteries, Persephone returned to Earth in a horse-drawn wagon, or because of her mother's history as a horse goddess, because her mother is also the goddess of horses. Okay. Spirit allies. Yeah, her mother, obviously. Dionysus, Ophiuchus, the Sirens, and friends, and they are her friends. Hecate is her handmaiden and messenger. Artemis and Athena are her friends. Aphrodite is her rival. So also similar. So they say, like, don't venerate Oshun with, I think it's Oya, or Yamanya. I can't remember, but it's similar, right? And she's similar to, I'm just saying, this is just very interesting how these, okay. And then Persephone returns to her mother in May, which is also known as the Witches' Month. Right? Okay. And it's also the month in which grain is expected to emerge from the earth. So would this be on our side of the country? Do we get corn in the summer? Pretty much. No? Corn in spring? Grain? Maybe, like wheat grain. Okay. Her constellation is Virgo. She is interpreted as a solitary woman holding a stalk of wheat or the divine child. Trees, black poplar, willow, and pomegranate. Her plant is parsley. And you can decorate her altar with images of Medusa, her protective guardian device. So guess who I go to next? Medusa. No, Lilith. Okay. Before we move on, I basically mentioned a lot of the connections. We have Earth, which is like Hertha, Earth, her connection to Earth and Demeter. I mean, it's pretty cool, like, learning about all of them, because this is getting faster and easier to be like, hey, this goddess also has very similar qualities, and this goddess also has similar qualities. So, Lilith is next. How long is this so far? Okay. So I'm just going to tell you. So it's Lilith and Medusa, because so Persephone talks about Medusa, and then Lilith. So I go to Lilith, because then this is where I was like, well, wait, who are some of the creation or creatrix or like primordial goddesses? Lilith is one of them. And then we have the story about how she didn't want to be, quote unquote, beneath a man, and she refused to, like, do what he said just because he said it. And so we're also seeing a depiction with her as, like, I have also seen this constant, like, even if the goddesses stand up or speak up, or they're independent, or they're a warrior goddess, so to speak, because who created that? Was it them? Were the goddesses running around warring with each other? I don't know. I feel like maybe not until later. But that it's like they are in trouble now, or they're hidden. Like, Lilith is extremely powerful. She sits next to God. She's the only being that is able to whisper in God's ear, according to some of the things I have read. And that she's the mother of all. but she was like almost completely erased, right? And so, yeah. Because, all right, this is why she's so important. She's also called Inanna, right? Like, and Ishtar. Like, there are links that will say, anyhow, so she is in Samaria and Babylonian, Assyrian, Canaanite, Hebrew, Mandean, Persian, Sabian, and Arabic myth and folklore. Myth and folklore, right? She may linger in Christianity under the guise of some Black Madonnas, plural, not just the one. Some Black Madonnas. Are those the Sibyls? I say yes. And they mean dark-skinned Madonnas, okay? She is an omnipresent figure in Jewish myth and folklore. A book of Jewish fairy tales without Lilith is very unlikely, okay? She demands acknowledgement. Her name appears only once in the Jewish Bible, Isaiah, and it's 34:14, which if you break that down, comes down to 3. And even that reference is ambiguous since it may also be literally interpreted as a screech owl, which is sometimes what she is called. She's the suppressed goddess who refuses to disappear. What did I just say, right? If she is not venerated, she will be feared, is what this lady is letting us know. Spirit of darkness and night. Lilith is both darkness and night. She's both angel and demoness of conception, blamed for miscarriages, stillbirths, and I say this stuff. Crib not alive and infertility. Lilith, the baby wetter. Also bestows baby not alive person. Also bestows fertility when and if she chooses. This is similar to the Valkyries on some level. Okay. She has domain over sensual desire, erotic dreams, and sacred magic, emphasizing the ambiguity of her personality. Lilith herself has revealed the tools that will guard against her. So, these are, even the Star of David is supposedly guards against Lilith. Okay. So, or you can use Adam and Eve, because they supposedly kind of like don't like her. Do you know how we talked? I have the Eve thing and Lilith or Anput, because I think Lilith is also Wajet, Anput, Sopdet, aka Sirius star. The Seal of Solomon, that's what I was just saying. Okay. She once encountered the prophet Elijah, who immediately recognized her and demanded new, improved protective measures. So they've been afraid of Lilith forever. And then what she says is she has many names, and if you use any of her names and you put it on your door or anywhere near you, she will protect you. She will protect you from herself, and she will protect you. And so there's a whole bunch of names, but I'll give you a few because they may sound familiar. Abiko, Ail, Ayil, Ail, Ilio, Bityua, and Kia, Kali, like Kali Ma, Odam or Odem, and Rafi, and Tilto, right? Some of those are familiar, some of those are not, but any of her names, any way you write her names, she will protect you from herself and in general, from what I remember of reading. Yeah. So with that, Lilith revealed that her other names to him and vowed not to cause harm to anyone, cause harm anywhere she saw or even heard those names. You're welcome. Just kidding. Just saying those names again in that mental kind of way of being like, hey, there you go. Okay. She despises sanctimonious people. Sorry, I just did that. Just probably pissed her off. I'm not being serious, but. And punishes the prudish. Punishes the prudish. Isn't that interesting? So she enjoys ensnaring hypocrites, but is protective. But is a protective guardian spirit towards those she perceives as her children, especially her daughters. So there are daughters of Lilith. She has domain over all aspects of Shmash and childbirth. She is immensely powerful, potentially vicious, and will fiercely eliminate any evil threatening those whom she guards. Sounds just like how people feel about some of the male deities that they revere, so to speak. She resists attempts to classify or pigeon her into any like specific thing. She breaks boundaries like change. Her name is synonymous with witch. She is frequently depicted as a vampire and or succubus. She is a queen of demons and angel of prostitution. Lilith leads 480 hosts of destroying angels and dangerous spirits. And if you break that down, it also breaks down. They both broke down to 12 and then 13. And then 3, which I find interesting. Both of those numbers. The number is derived from numerology based on the numerical value of the letters in her name. Yet, 13, the 13th century Spanish Kabbalist described Lilith as a ladder on which one can ascend to the rungs of prophecy. So you know how they have Jacob's ladder? It was Lilith's ladder. First, it sounds like. Okay? Then, manifestations. Okay. She possesses many forms. One of the forms that I specifically underline and I'm going to use today because this is getting long is that she manifests into animal form, typically as a large black cat, black dog, or owl. Even when in human form, Lilith may display birds' feet, claws, or wings, similar to Inanna. Okay? That's why I mentioned it in the first place. Or Isis with the wings. A 7th century... a tablet from what is now Syria depicting Lilith as a winged sphinx is accompanied by an incantation in Phoenician and Canaanite dialect intended to assist birthing women. Okay? But it's supposed to ward her off of these people. Like it's a tablet warding off Lilith. Okay? Or Lily. They call her Lily as well. And Lily in Hebrew, or Lily is night. Okay. Her attributes: a flaming sword. She's also a goddess of trees. I skipped past that part because I wanted to get to this part, but she is also a goddess of trees. Let me go back to that. Because I'll also give you all her names before we finish this. So, Lilith, Screech Owl, Beautiful Maiden, Dark Maid, Flame of the revolving sword, Maid of Desolation, Night Demon, Hand of Inanna. Okay? The Night Witch, the Howler. Also known as Lilitu in Samaria and Lilius in Yiddish. Lilis. And her origin is Sumerian. Okay? And no spirit possesses more fabulous history than Lilith, is what they're saying. But she's also... it says that she Her earliest appearance in record history is in Samaria, where she is somehow associated with Inanna. Although identified as a wind spirit, Lilith has profound association with trees. She is a wild, free spirit who cannot be chained or contained. Okay, there is the myth of the Hulupupu tree. Inanna makes the transition into an urban, settled archaeological environment, where she instigates the chopping down of the sacred tree of Lilith that she calls home, and Lilith flees, remaining in the wilderness. The Kabbalists identify Lilith as the spouse of Samuel, chief of the evil angels. Really? Really? On the other hand, Lilith also reputedly sits at Yahweh's side in heaven, his consort following the exile of Shekinah, and thus the most powerful intercessor of all, literally able to whisper in God's ear. I already said that. Okay, so I want to tell you the tree part, but she is accredited for creating Adam from earth and herself, and that she didn't like him immediately because he tried to tell her what to do. Okay, so where was I? Flaming sword, Lilith's parent, decorated altar with images of hands. So the Hamsa can also, she likes hands. Hands are also an attribute of her because of the hand of Inanna. And so you can use the Hamsa is another, and also known as the handmaid. Lilith is also known as the handmaid. So is that interesting with like the handmaiden's tale? That's become very popular. Okay, her colors are black and red. The moon is Lilith's lantern. Her power increases with the waning moon. Lilith is also in the name given to 3 distinct space phenomena. Want to hear this one? This is interesting. Earth's hypothetical second moon. Dark moon Lilith. Is it hypothetical? The apogee of the moon's orbit, the furthest point from Earth, and an asteroid. So they're all called Lilith. All those 3. Algol, known in traditional Jewish astrology, is the Lilith star. Algnol, Algol, Algol. Isn't that star in a certain position right now? Anyway, it's known as Lilith star. Lilith has associations with air, water, earth, and fire. All of them. Hebrew myth has her created from earth. In Samaria, she began her incarnation as a wild spirit. She manifests as fire. In the Zohar, holy book of the Kabbalists, it explains that Lilith is nourished by water, while the south wind spreads her influence. Lilith is frequently found living in wells, as she is in trees. She loves all wild animals, but has a special affinity for jackals, hyenas, wild cats, black dogs, ostriches, and snakes. And snakes. Okay. Like Medusa. Her bird is the owl, her sacred bird and messenger. Her mount, she rides a dragon, in which form she may also manifest. So she can also turn herself into a dragon. Is Lilith Tiamat? Is Tiamat Lilith? Okay. Lilith rules solstices and equinoxes and is associated with the zodiac sign of Scorpio. Her flower is obviously a lily. This I found fascinating. Beautiful. Lilith is happiest in desolate wilderness, far removed from civilization. She loves forests, crossroads, sea coasts, and especially the desert. When Lilith fled from Adam, she went to dwell in a cave in the desert on the shores of the Red Sea. the Grand Canyon, next to the Red River, Colorado. Reputedly, still her favorite place when she approaches people. Okay, anyways, the desert, still her favorite place. When she approaches people, she makes homes for herself in the trees and wells. Provide them for her to keep her close. Okay, so that's what I'm gonna talk about. I'll let you know her offerings as well. Her offerings are frankincense, plates of jam, tea, doll babies, and images of animals she loves, trees, and a wilderness for her. Offerings may be placed on an altar or outside. She loves the outdoors. And then there's the daughters of Lilith, and that origin is Jewish. The daughters of Lilith is a Jewish term, and this is what the book said, is a Jewish term indicating a witch. It may be understood to indicate any of Lilith's mortal female devotees. So that's just a part of her. Yeah, I'm going to do a little bit more, but she is the mother of hosts of spirits, and this is where daughters of Lilith may be among them. These daughters may be her actual daughters of Lilith's females entourage. Okay, and then I was going to finish up with Medusa, so this is a little longer than I expected, but hey, the reason why. So, snakes with Lilith. Ishtar, Inanna, right? Isis, the claws, the dragons, Tiamat. There's just the beginning of time, being able to speak to God. I don't think there's another deity that can do that. I think the closest is Anput, because Anput was supposedly out of the mind of mother, father, as they tell it. And then Lilith, what else? Oh, the nighttime, the moon, her gifts and powers, mostly to primordial goddesses like Tiamat, creating, whole legions of beings. Also the connectedness to like the beginning, either born from Earth or helped create Earth. And then, okay, that's it for now. That's coming to my mind. I'm sure you guys probably noticed some other things and might be able to match to certain deities. Okay, so Medusa. All right, Medusa. Libya is where her origin is. She, the most beautiful and only mortal Gorgon sister, is a sea spirit. Did y'all know that? They don't really depict her as a mermaid from what I can remember. Maybe I just need to go back some. But anyhow, Poseidon, so there's two stories. There's one story where they actually wanted to be together with her consent. And then there's the other story, right? But either way, Athena was like, meh, and not happy. And so then she supposedly turned Medea into the, Gorgon, so to speak, or the woman with snakes, right, on her head. So, and it's supposed to happen while she was asleep. Oh no. Then, in the story of, I think it's the Jason and the Argonauts, where Perseus was sent to get Medusa's head and to do it while she was sleeping and then give it to Athena. We know the story, right? We know the story. But supposedly the Pegasus came from Medusa after. It's supposed to be like a creature that was created by her and Poseidon. But these are some of the myths. Okay. Other legends suggest that she is a Libyan snake goddess. That she is actually Athena's mother and closely related spirit, or possibly even the identity Athena left behind when she moved from North Africa to Greece. Athena's participation in the destruction of Medusa may be interpreted as the goddess destroying her own past. Alternatively, she desired, so that's one theory, right? The other story is like she wanted Medusa's power, and then Athena wore her head as a shield. Another myth is that Athena possessed more than Medusa's head, that she wore her skin, which is super creepy. She's not just a minor sea spirit, Medusa. She is a goddess of menstrual power, hence female power. This is an ancient metaphysical belief that menstrual, stuff is the single most spiritually and magically powerful substance on earth. I mean, that and maybe like the placenta, right? Like so many, or possibly breast milk, are very powerful things. Anyhow, back to what it says. It can be used to destroy or overwhelm any other power. That's pretty cool. Snakes are traditionally associated with menstruation. Modern euphemisms used to be that you got bit by the snake. Okay. As late as the 18th century suggests that a menstruating woman's hair, if a menstruating woman buries her hair in the earth, it will turn into a snake. Okay, that's some of the. And in Asian culture is a belief that menstruation indicates being possessed by snakes, which I think I talked about in a whole nother story. Coral is allegedly Medusa's blood, which spilled into the sea and was petrified. And here's what's super interesting. I don't know if you guys know this about coral, but no matter if the coral is the same species, no matter where it is on the planet. So if I had some coral from, say, Australia, and the coral reef that is in Australia, and I'm here on the west coast of the Pacific Northwest, and it decides to spawn or to do its shedding like seed, which is I think what coral does. The one I have and the one in Australia will do it at the exact same time. Doesn't matter what's up. They found that out. So that's fascinating. Okay. So maybe that is hers because that's pretty amazing. Okay. So a lot of things of Medusa used to be carved from coral. She embodies menstruation's protective powers. Statues of Medusa are used to guard pagan Greek temples. Okay, she may also be accessed as a living goddess by those seeking menstrual and serpentine mysteries. She may manifest as a beautiful goddess or into the one that has like the face and the snakes. She can also manifest as a mermaid. Sometimes, however, she's portrayed as a living woman. Modern images of her mermaids, some with snaky hair, are also sometimes labeled Medusa, but these are usually modern Gorgon mermaids. Okay, so her planet is the moon and may include Ophiuchus, which I think was also part of Lilith, and same with the moon. The star Algol, which we just went over with Lilith, is usually considered a star of ill fortune, is traditionally perceived as representing Medusa's eye. So how is that going? One is Lilith and one is Medusa's eyes. So is Lilith Medusa? What about the story of Tiamat creating her dragon children? Is this Lilith and or Medusa? Come on now. Anyhow, all right. And then modern astrologists suggest that this star is associated with female power and the reemergence of the feminine divine. Booyah! In addition, the Medusa Nebula within the constellation of Gemini features snake-like filaments of glowing gas. Medusa, I would say Medusa is one of Lilith's daughters, or Medusa and Lilith are one and the same. So, offerings. So her animals are lions and snakes. Snakes, snakes, snakes. Of course. Of course. Offerings are coral, anything serpentine. So like the stone, serpentine, or anything that looks like a snake. Menstrual blood, stained pads or garments. Heart blood? Okay. Oh my gosh. So the next video will be where I dive into the American indigenous deities that I found, because the creation goddesses that I found, because that's kind of the point. Like, I actually think that Hecate comes back to the Americas. I feel like these stories that I've told today are universal, and that there's probably a similar, we know that there are some similar stories in all traditions and cultures, right? And but mostly I want to kind of bring that to our awareness, because here we're starting to learn our deities are also interchangeable as far as some of the names, some of the way they look, some of their elemental gifts, especially if you're looking at, say, a Kachina and an Orisha. You would see things that we have been told are African can also very similarly relate to some of the American indigenous dress and sounds, dances. And there is even a link from the language of California to the language of the Yoruba people. Okay? That's not my resource. I found that information by watching Kimero Ahau and then doing my own research on the side. So, that's the video for today. I wanted to leave you with just some tiny little side notes for any kind of pain. Oh, and I am going to be doing some videos soon here on YouTube talking about cleansing, different ways to cleanse, talking about fasting, how to get rid of certain heavy metals. Though I'm not a doctor, I'm just going to share information with you from some books I have, some information I learned myself, and that type of thing. But we're almost at an hour, so... Oh, and then paint, like peppermint oil, lavender, and rosemary. Rosemary is my favorite. You can also take rosemary. They say, I've heard from some of the research I've done, rosemary is a good herb for your insides and your outsides. Thank you so much for being here, for joining, for subscribing, for listening. And hey, now there's a little button down below if you want to send me a thanks, show me how much you appreciate anything at my time and energy, or just to say hi. You can go ahead and do that now. That's pretty cool. Also, I just appreciate you being here, subscribing, watching. I also have my Patreon. I'll be sharing more stuff over there. You can join for free, or you can sign up for certain vibes. Thank you all. See you next time.